Welcome to Dove and Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. I'm here with special guest and back on our podcast, Michael Murry. Welcome.
It's great to be here again.
Now
Wonderful.
You have a brand new book out.
Right.
And it's called A Journey Home: An American Odyssey.
Yes. Yes.
Now, this is true life experiences.
Most of it is true life. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we like having a little bit of true life in here. And I happen to remember your last book, it was a little bit more fun facts about Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. Well, this book talks about an American Odyssey. If you remember Homer's Odyssey, Homer was going home. Mm-hmm. And it took him several years, and then he had all these adventures. And as you probably know, I'm a better storyteller than I am a novelist. But all the novelists that I really like Michener and Hemingway, write the same way. They write stories, and then they connect the stories together and end up with a book. So that's what this book is about. It's about Jeff, who is the protagonist in A Week in Vietnam, is getting out of the Navy, and he's going to San Francisco, and he finds out that he's got about 3 weeks before he's got to be home and start school and start a job. So he has some time. And if you remember the old TV show Route 66, I really liked that show. You're probably a little young to remember it, but about two guys.
I think I remember the reruns of it.
Oh, anyway. So basically that's kind of the underline that I started with. And we have that, plus he's got some time on his hands. So he decides to go visit the national parks in California, and he travels from park to park, has a college friend that's living on the Navajo reservation, and he ends up in the Navajo reservation. Now, the underlying part of this story is when we're all that age, we have this path set out in front of us. What we need to do, how we need to get there, how we're going to attain whatever this goal is. And yet, at that age, we also get to the point of thinking, is that really what I want to be doing with my life? Is that the way I want my life to end? Because it sounds awfully boring. And at that age, we can be a lot, but we don't want to be bored. So the whole time he's driving, there are two characters in his head that are constantly arguing. One he calls the nerd, because the nerd says, no, you need to stay on this path and you need to go, and this is what you've got set. And the other one I call the siren, because she's the one who says, oh no, you got to go you got some time, go make sure this is what you want to do, go have a good time with your life. As he says, I love her, but I'm just not sure I trust her. So the other thing that this book is about, for those of us who came back to the States from Vietnam in '73, and we had been out in the Pacific, things had changed a lot. A lot of things in America had changed during that short period of time. The draft had been eliminated, so people were not terrified of being drafted. I can remember when I was in the Pacific hearing about these demonstrations right outside the gates, anti-war, baby killers and all that. But getting back in '73, that was all ended. And I guess it ended with the draft. So that's one of the other things I wanted to talk about. What had changed from the end of that end of the Vietnam War, what had changed in the US. And that's sort of what this book is about. But it's a series of great stories tied together.
Right, because we hear there's not anyone out there, regardless of what your age is, we hear about the protests, we hear about the war, right or wrong. We do not hear about what actually changed after the draft ended. We did not hear what progress we made when everyone came back.
Right. And it really had changed. In 70, there were demonstrations going on in the universities and the colleges. By 73, that was all over. In the 70s, the flower children are sort of there, but they're not nearly as big as they were in 73. So Jeff comes back and he's sort of expecting the world to be the way it was when he left it, and it has changed a lot. One of the, in the book, he picks up a couple of, he meets several hippies. One of them he picks up, and in 71 or 72, and most people don't even remember this, but there were, I guess it was 72, there were 150, 200 hippies in Yosemite in a pasture area. And the park rangers, the park superintendent didn't want them there, put up a sign telling them they had to be out, and they didn't leave. They weren't doing anything. They were not damaging anything. They were just out there having a party. And they came riding in on horseback, swinging clubs. And it just turned out at that point that there was a young man who was a filmmaker, whose mother was a filmmaker and filmed all this. I can remember the Pacific reading about that and was just appalled. I mean, I just can't, what happened to our country? So anyway, that's kind of giving you an idea of some of the stuff that this book is about.
Right, you're taking a fictional character, but you're bringing in all this real life stuff.
Exactly.
You bringing in a lot of things that we don't hear about that we do need to hear about because it's all relevant to today.
Exactly. You're quick. You are quick.
There is nothing that has happened in the past that we can't link back to what's going on today.
Exactly.
It may be a different president, a different set of circumstances, but it's all connected in one way or another.
Yes, it's amazing. So, but in his travels, he starts out, he's processing out of the Navy in San Francisco, and I'll give you one quick story from it. And this was true. I had to process my resignation from the Navy in order to get off Guam in the summer of 73. And I'd sent in the letter, but hadn't heard from it. And one night I stayed up until 10 or 11 o'clock at the office to call Washington, D.C. to see if they'd gotten my letter. And I'll never forget, this young woman, Ensign, answers the phone. And I asked her, I said, have you gotten my letter? And he said, yes, sir, we've got it, and it's state stamped and all official. And then she says, sir, we are way behind here. She said, sir, the whole Navy is retiring, resigning and retiring. And I went, well, Ensign, if you were out here, you'd understand why that's happening. So, and that's absolutely true. I mean, this very official voice, and then this, sir, the entire Navy is resigning.
Yeah, imagine processing all those resignations or letters to get out of the Navy all at one time, because no one wants to be there and everyone's just there because they were drafted.
Yep.
So,
or they enlisted any number of things, but it was not what any of us expected.
No.
I guess that's the biggest thing. And but anyway, the book, as you know, I write with a lot of humor. I think a lot of humor. I think funny. So there's a lot of humor in it.
Of course, because I am still laughing about the squirrel in the other book. So yes, I do remember these podcasts when we get off air. I do remember the books because when it's something funny, it sticks with you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This also has some very poignant moments. One of them, he goes to Sequoia, and this was actually based on a real experience I had too. We went to Sequoia, and he goes on a tour of the trees, big trees,
Mhm.
and the person that took him on the tour was Japanese, very Japanese American, but he was very spiritual, which was interesting. But he gets to the end of this tour and he reads to us from The Little Prince. And I tried to read that book 4 times and never had understood it until I heard him read it with regard to these giant, magnificent trees. And there's a part in the book about taming something and taming things. And when you tame something, you relate to it the rest of your life. And he catches the attention of everybody in that group. So he's in there.
Well, of course, we have to have, okay, you're adding culture from a different culture. Japanese American, especially during Vietnam area, weren't very well-rounded because we still are recovering from World War II and the mindset. And then you have we're learning things about other cultures. Now you're putting a little bit of humor in things that actually happened. So you get a nice blend of everything.
It is. I like the book, by the way, and between you and me and nobody else, I think it's a better book than my first book. I just learned a lot writing the first book, and I think this book, I think it's better. It's a more well-rounded, and very, very interesting read, just because of the diverse things that are going on in this guy's life and things we can all experience. I can definitely remember being in my mid-20s, and up until that time, I knew exactly what I was going to do with my life. And here I was, not really knowing if I'm on the right path, right? Not really knowing if I'm going the right way, and thinking I have to make a decision right now. So anyway.
No, we all go through it though. Every person out there in your 20s, you have a mindset. This is what I'm going to be, because when you're 18, 19 years old, what are your parents telling you? You have to go to college, you have to go to the military, you have to have a job. One of those 3 paths. That's the only thing that you have. You have to do one of them. Well, you get to 25, 28 years old and you look back, is this something I really want to do? Why did I do this to myself?
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of young people reading this book will hopefully understand this character and what he's going to. And all the rest of us who are no longer young people look back and go, oh yeah, I remember that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's either learning that you have another path and you can look back when you get older and laugh at it, or we're older, we're reading the book and go, yeah, we had a similar experience.
He actually drives down the old Route 66 too. And he's trying to get from Yosemite to the Navajo reservation in northern New Mexico. To do it, he's got to go south of the Sierras and come around. And the interstate that he gets on is partly the old Route 66. So I kind of wove that into the book also, because again, those of us my age, Route 66 was just almost a mecca. Everybody wanted to go be like the guys on Route 66 and go drive down this highway. So anyway, but anyway, and he literally is in the book ends, he's literally on the Navajo reservation. He has to be back. He has to make a decision. When he gets to Flagstaff, he has to turn left to go back to Texas and go to school, or he has to turn right and go back to find the woman that he met on the trip that he was in love with. And they decided it was not time. So he had to make the decision when he got to I-20, turn left and go on the regular path, or turn right and find a new path. And he picks up a hitchhiker, an older middle-aged hitchhiker that helps him resolve all these issues. But it's that the young man with the older middle-aged, and he's sort of, son, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but I can tell you what I should have done. And by the end of the book, he's made his decision.
So is there going to be a third book of this?
I don't know. I don't know. I've really been thinking about that. I have written 20 short stories. My favorite group of short stories I call the Uncle Billy series. Mm-hmm. And you may see some similarities between Uncle Billy and the hitchhiker, but Uncle Billy stories is a young man, and Uncle Billy is not really his uncle, but he goes, when he has a problem, he goes to talk to his Uncle Billy. And Uncle Billy is always the man who says, well, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what happened to me in a similar situation. And I've written Uncle Billy on marriage, and Uncle Billy on buying Valentine gifts. And oh yeah, that's, you've never probably had the joy of being a young man and having to buy a Valentine gift for your girlfriend. Yeah, that'll.
No, I haven't had the privilege of that, but I have went on shopping sprees with my grandfather and trying to pick out a gift for my grandmother.
There you go.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I have that little bit.
Let's see. So I'm thinking about putting all the Uncle Billy stories together and publishing a book of short stories, just all Uncle Billy stories. And then I've written several short stories about things that happened while I was out in the Pacific, involving Vietnam, involving Guam, and they're all of these, I can let my sense of humor run rampant, and they're all hysterically funny. So.
Well, you should definitely publish them, because if you can put humor to anything out there, that's a good thing.
Oh yeah. Anyway, but that's it. And I have tried to thought about Jeff and what happens to him next. And Journey Home, I've ended it at a point where I can end his saga. Mm-hmm. But I leave myself enough out that I can pick it up and maybe write another book about him. So it'll be actually be a trilogy. And one of the things that I was thinking about writing about is his relationship with one of these women that he's met along the way, and write about that. But we'll see. We'll see.
There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to trilogies. You can either start it or not. Uh-huh. So you can actually even have a decade where something's passed before you pick up the story again.
Okay, so the next time we talk, you'll have read the book and you'll be able to say, no, it ends there. That's the place it has to end. Or no, this is really what I want to know. What happened to it?
Okay, I can do that.
I know you, of course you can. I know you can. I mean, you and I have had a couple of very good conversations.
We have.
We have had very good conversations. And you are of an age when you read the book and when you get, well, a friend of mine, I gave it to a woman friend of mine to read. And at 5 o'clock the next morning, I get it, my phone rings, I pick it up, it's her, and the conversation starts with, how dare you?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that's nice at 5 o'clock in the morning. And the problem was I knew exactly what she was asking. There was no doubt in my mind that she had just finished the book. So,
well, that's always a good thing. I mean, I love my 5 o'clock phone calls, and anyone that wakes me up at 5 o'clock in the morning with a phone call, you better have a good reason to do it.
I mean, but literally, that was it. How dare you? I said, I'm sorry. That's the way the stories end. I mean, you know, I don't make things up. That's the way you could have changed that. Yeah, I could have, but it would have been wrong, and it would have been fake, and it would have been unreal.
Yep.
But so anyway,
I completely 100% understand, because our books take on a life of their own.
they do.
And the characters tell us when the book is over and when we need to rest and think about, do we continue the story or do not?
Exactly. And it will say, okay, at this point, this happened and so on and so forth. But, you know, you can still, this still is unanswered in his life. So you move on.
Mm-hmm.
And you could write another book about it, but I'm just sort of, when you say you've said everything you really want to say,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then you run a real risk of undercutting what you've already said. So maybe time for me to move on. But you, by the way, you'd like the Uncle Billy stories. With your sense of humor, you'd like the Uncle Billy stories.
I probably would. I'm waiting for them to come across my desk, but they haven't been here yet.
Uncle Billy on Marriage is a classic. It's just a classic.
Oh,
Because it talks about, we don't do big weddings like we used to,
mm-mm.
but we still do big weddings. And, you know, and young woman grows up and in her 20s and she wants to be the princess for the day and so on and so forth. So this Uncle Billy story is totally told from the standpoint of the poor guy who's going through this, and is actually told, okay, you can ask two questions. What do I wear? And what time do I have to be there? Those are the only two questions you get to. But yeah, it's funny. And having gone through that more than once, there's a lot of truth in that book.
I probably need to read that one as it pertains to my real life right now. So
Let me send it to you. Let me send you the story. I will do that.
awesome. Thank you.
I would be more than happy to.
Oh my goodness. Because we're in the process of planning a wedding.
Oh my God.
My version of a wedding and his version of a wedding is completely two different things.
Uh-huh.
Now, we're kind of different. His is the big wedding, and mine is the courthouse with the family members present.
I wish my wife were here in the room. She's not right now, but when we decided to get married, she said the same thing.
Mhm.
Let's just go down to the courthouse and do that. I said, no, this is my last one. one way or the other. This is it. It stops here. And I'm going to throw a party. And it was, I mean, it was wonderful. We did it in, at the time I owned a condominium in downtown Austin, and I had a roof deck that was 3 stories up. And so we got married on my roof deck in downtown Austin. So it was a fun party. But again, it was her saying, let's go to the courthouse, and me saying, no, this, oh. And one other thing, at the time, as you know, I practiced law for a long time. At the time, I was really busy doing some legal stuff. And so I called my paralegal and my secretary in and said, okay, I don't have time to plan this. Y'all are going to do this. And they go, what? I said, you've got to plan the wedding. This is, and they called in one other secretary. So our whole wedding was planned by my paralegal and 2 secretaries in the office. And the amazing thing was, you know, all of them had ideas as to how marriages, you know, what they want their marriage to be. All of them dumped them into our, this is it. So all of them dumped. And one time, a year or so later, I went to the paralegal and I said, out of curiosity, how much did I spend on this wedding, on that wedding? And she goes, you don't really want to know.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is you don't want to know the cost. Just go with it.
It's over. Yeah, forget it. Cost isn't important to the thing. Yeah, okay. Anyway.
Yeah, we don't look at the cost at ever anything when it comes to weddings.
Okay, well, I will definitely send you a copy of Uncle Billy on Weddings. I'll get it and send it to you.
Oh, thank you.
Do I have an email address for you? Can I email it for you?
If you don't have it, I know Michelle has it.
Okay, all right. I'll get it from her and I'll email that to you. I may email you 1 or 2 of the other ones just so you, I'll mail you one of the Uncle Billy, and then I'll mail you one of the Pacific Stories.
Awesome. I can't wait to see all of them of the Uncle Billy's stories in print, because now that we're talking about it, now you have to do it.
Okay, well, I probably have to write, I think I've got 5 or 6 written. I probably need to write a couple more to have it book length.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
But I enjoy writing them. You know, when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm laughing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what writing's all about, right?
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
It has
but
to
I know
be fun.
I know too many writers that it's such a drudge to them.
Mm-hmm.
And a long time ago, I decided that I'm in a lucky situation that I don't have to make money writing with my writing. Mm-hmm. I don't have to do that. So I write what I like, and I don't need to send them to an editor and have the editor come back and say, revise this and revise this. So I write what I like, and I write what's funny to me, and it's usually funny to other people. And yeah. By the way, one of the reasons I like talking to you is you think I'm funny.
Well, you are. You make me laugh. You give me insight to some of my family members that are not here to give me that insight no more.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. Really, we all wish that when we were growing up, we had an Uncle Billy that we could go to, mm-hmm. who wouldn't say, this is what you need to do. You know, you need to do this and all that. We needed an Uncle Billy who said, you know, I can't really tell you what to do, but I can tell you what happened in my situation that was very similar to this. And most of the time with that, we could have picked up and figured out which way we needed to go. But there were very few of those. Or if I never knew them. I mean, I never knew them. So.
I had Grandpa. Other than Grandpa, I didn't have an Uncle Billy.
So. At least you had Grandpa.
Yeah, I had Grandpa. He was a
And by
great-
the way, those are most of the Uncle Billies. I mean, those are the guys that are old enough and experienced enough to know they can't tell you what to do.
Mhm.
Because but they can say, hey, when I was your age, this is what I did. And by the way, it blew up in my face. So I suggest that you might not want to try that.
Or I told your parent how to do this and they did the opposite. So I'm going to tell you not how to do it, but what they did.
There we go. I like that too. I like that too. That's very good.
So
All right.
thank you so much for being on the show. But before I let you go, where can our readers and our listeners and our viewers find you?
The best way is to go on Amazon, amazon.com, and just key in William Michael Murry, or key in Journey Home, An American Odyssey, or A Week in Vietnam. All that will take them to that page. And there is an author's page from there that they can go to, and it'll have all my information. Or this is even, they can go to William Michael Murry author.com, I believe. And that's the webpage. So any of those they can get. But and by the way, I can't tell you how many of my friends have read the book, really liked the book, and promised me they'd do a review and didn't. Now, I can either take that as maybe they were stroking me and
Okay. No. You're talking about Amazon. So if they know you personally, Amazon will hide the review or not post it.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is when they're telling me how much they liked the book, maybe they didn't like it so much and didn't want to do a review. On the other hand, a lot of these guys just probably didn't have the time. But tell them I even like to read bad reviews. I mean, it's interesting for me to read somebody and why they didn't like something. You know, I may not, probably won't change it, but at least I know why they didn't like it and can sometimes write around it. So,
right.
Anyway, but
We
yeah.
like our reviews, the good, the bad, the ugly, because it helps us as authors.
Yeah. You're getting married?
I'm getting married.
Huh?
Yes, I am.
And when?
As soon as I finish discussing which side of the marriage we're actually going to do. One takes planning, one doesn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. But we are out of time, so thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoy your interviews more than anyone else's because you have such a great sense of humor, and you and I can sit here and laugh. You know, my other interviews, they're going, well, what, you know, yeah, I can do the, you know, the writer thing and all that, but this is a lot more fun. It's just a lot more fun. So,
it is. But
anyway,
thank you. And for
thank
our
you, dear.
viewers and our listeners, happy reading.